Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and another edition of Poetry Thursday. So last week we looked at one of the great Czech poets, Karel Hynek Macha, and it got some nice responses, and I thought I would look into another Czech poet today, and that is the poet Karel Hynek Macha, who you may have heard of, who you may not have heard of, but he's very important to Czech poetry and the Czech romantic movement. So I thought we'll have a little bit of an introduction to his life, and so therefore you can learn a little bit more about him. Karel Hynek Macha was born in Prague in 1810. He grew up in Prague and studied languages in school such as Latin and German. After school, he went on to study law at Prague University. It was while Macha was at university he went on to discover an interest in the theatre, and he starred or worked on a play rather in the town of Benešov, which is not too far from Prague. And it was while working on this play that he met Eleonora Šomková, and this was to be kind of the love of his life, or the love of his short life, as we'll see, as he went on to have a son with her outside of wedlock. Macha moved to the town of Litoměřice, a quiet town not too far from Prague. And while he was there, he spent his days writing poetry and preparing for his law school exams. A few days before he was due to marry Šomková, he died, and it's really sad. Apparently he'd started working in like a law practice as a legal assistant, and they had a fire which he helped to extinguish, and apparently he overexerted himself in doing so, caught pneumonia, and died a day before his wedding. So I think that's really tragic, but then I suppose in keeping perhaps with the life of a romantic poet. So not long before Macha died, he actually published his epic poem May. I find that quite interesting because the Czechs actually don't use any form of derivation of May in their months of the year. In fact, the Czechs are well known for having their kind of independent forms for the months of the year. They don't follow any other European patterns really at all for that. But this was an epic poem, and it's very lyrical, and it's very long. But it's funny because when it was published, the critics actually deemed it confusing, too individualistic, and not in harmony with national ideas. And the poem was actually rejected by publishers, and Macha had to proceed to publish it at his own expense. It's very interesting because once he had died, the true value of this poem really became realized. You know, his genius, if you like, was finally discovered. So much so that this poem May is now regarded as the classic work of Czech romanticism, and considered perhaps either the greatest, or at least one of the greatest Czech poems ever written. Now, you're probably expecting to hear it now after all that build-up, but as I said, it's very, very long and very lyrical, and perhaps not something I can really do on here. So I will leave a link to that particular poem down below, and I think it's worth checking out if you're interested in, well, romantic poetry or epic poetry anyway. So instead, I'm going to read another poem by Macha, and this is the poem Ruined, or in Czech, Klesla. See an apple tree forsaken, stricken by snap frost of night. Oh, how my poor heart is aching for the fruit tree marred by blight. Fruitless sobbing, silent pleading, clear tears in white blossoms yearn, all to no avail, unheeding, for the spring will not return. Young girl, one there shaded standing, all your joy now woebegone, to your rosemary wreath be tending, hope to wed ere death anon. Innocence by flash of lightning, struck by force of fearful night, her life's sunlight vital brightening, drowned in deepest darkest night. Full moon risen, how it's shining, now on flushed cheeks tears come glossed, all the blooms cry with her pining, for the garland torn she's lost. That's quite lovely, I think, and very romantic. So that's called Ruined, rather, excuse me. When Macha died, he was buried in Litoměřice as a pauper, but in 1939 he was exhumed and given a state burial at Vyšehrad Cemetery in Prague. I find that kind of interesting, given that in 1939 Czechoslovakia was already occupied by the Nazis, but yeah, I suppose some things perhaps transcend politics. Anyway, he went on to appear on stamps and coins, and statues were erected in his honor, and the popular Czech holiday destination of Machovo Jezero, or Macha Lake, was named after him in 1961. So that concludes our little look at Karel Hynek Macha. I hope you found him interesting and maybe inspired to check him out a little bit more. I mean, he had a sad life, really, but he did find love, and but it was too short. Only 25 years of age when he died. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Do take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye bye.